Okay, so here, guys, I want to show you a few filters to use in Adobe Illustrator. Alright, so I'm just going to turn these layers off for a sec. I'm going to show you where these filters are, how to use them, and kind of some common places that I use them. Alright. So the first filter I'm going to show you guys is a blur filter. Some of you guys have used it already, but this is something anytime you want to make something feel soft. So it will just slightly fuzz a shape. So I use this for things I want to feel light, fluffy, airy, so possibly clouds, smoke. Here I'll do an example of fire, fog, possibly a spotlight, anything like that. So to put the blur filter on this, let's go ahead and do one more shape also. It's very simple. So you have to just select your shape. So I have the orange shape here selected, then you go up here to effect. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different effects. All of these alter your shapes in one way or another. I'll show you some common ones I use. So let's go to blur, Gaussian blur. So this is one I use a lot. So as you can see, it applied a slight little blur on there. You want to have this box for preview checked, so it gives you a preview of what it's going to do to that shape. So you can adjust this slider. You see it gets more or less blurry depending on what I do there. Okay, so now there's a nice little blurred effect. You can also go to Effect, Stylize, Feather. It basically does the exact same thing. Okay, so those are two ways to get kind of those soft little shapes. So going back to our example here, maybe here on the background, yeah, let's. So maybe here we will have a nice little cloud. We're going to change this to white so we don't have a yellow cloud. Okay, so this is a place where it might be nice to put a filter or a soften filter. And be subtle with these filters. So you see how I just put a slight blur on there so it's not super blurry. That's the best way to do it. Some of these other filters can be a nice way to add in texture. Again, I've seen some people use these on their projects already. So if you have, think of ways to use them. If not, here are some other places. So these shapes that Illustrator makes are very, very smooth. As you can see, it's obviously just one value across this entire shape. It seems like a very smooth thing. But if you ever want something to feel kind of rough or just have a little bit more visual interest in it rather than just one smooth, flat value over an entire shape, you can add some of these filters. Okay, so I like these texture ones. So Effect. So again, I have this shape selected, the hill. Effect. Texture. So you can bring up any of these. So some of these will bring up a separate window here. All right. So this is a mosaic tile texture here on this. So all of these have different settings you can do. So this is just the tile size, the grout width, which is the space in between the tiles. It says how light the grout is. All right. So that one's okay. You could use this for like a brick texture on a building as well. This one's good. This just kind of adds some roughness to it. Again, I've seen a few people use these, so it can be a nice technique. If you do use them, it's better to do it subtly. So see how I'm turning this down so there's not as much contrast on there. If I turn this up a whole bunch, yeah, so this gets more visual interest. So unless you were doing this on a focal point, usually I would keep these more subtle. Okay, I like this. So all of these do slightly different things. Stained glass. This texturizer one is nice. This really just kind of provides a nice, simple texture here. And here you have a few other options. So here's a canvas, burlap, little brick. So again, this could be used on a building or something like this. Or sandstone. I'll use the sandstone one. Here, push OK. Now I have a little bit of texture there on that hill. Okay? So think about where in your composition you might want to put a little bit of texture. Again, usually in the foreground you want a little bit of texture. You can put some very, very subtle texture in like big areas like a sky or a hill. This is almost, I'm not quite liking that too much, so I'm going to go back to smooth there. But go in here under these effects, especially this texture one, play around with these different options and see what might work for some of your compositions. And these filters, these soft filters, will probably be used a lot for you guys. Let me put one more shape on here, and I'll add it again. So I'm doing this for like the shadow on a cloud. So I want a shadow to be very subtle. So I'm going to Effect, Blur, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Turn that up. Okay, and now I'm going to select this shape and adjust the opacity also. So now I have that nice subtle little shadow on my soft cloud. Okay, so don't overuse these filters, just use them in 1 or 2 spots in your composition, but it can be a nice effect to use in a few places.